with a number of other resources that that we think are valuable. During the presentation, you'll be on mute to reduce background noise, but please do use the Q&A feature. You'll see the button down at the bottom of your screens for Q&A to submit any questions. We welcome any and all questions, and we will answer audience questions about the subject matter during a Q&A session at the end. As we go along, we will be posting some valuable resources in chat. This webinar was prepared by Berkeley Lab researchers and is sponsored by program managers at FEM. Today's presenter will be Molly Morabito. She's a researcher in the Building and Industrial Applications Department here at Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. Molly works on clean energy technology adoption and improved sustainability practices for government and the private sector. She has a multidisciplinary academic background and experience working at the nexus between civil society, research, policy, and government. She received her Master's of Science in Environmental Policy and Regulation from the London School of Economics and Political Science. Also providing support on this call are Liang Wang, Shravan Chalasani, the team leader, Christopher Payne, and myself. So thanks for joining us for part 2 of our 3-part series on contracting for efficiency. Our first webinar provided an introduction to energy efficient product procurement. This webinar is going to focus on 4 key tips for how to contract effectively for energy efficient products. Our third and final webinar, to be held July 29th, will present some lessons learned from the research we've conducted and highlight some of the practices of successful procurement professionals. I'll now turn it over to Molly.
Thanks, Ian. As mentioned, the second webinar in our Contracting for Efficiency series will present 4 tips for ensuring effective contract compliance with federal energy efficiency requirements. So let's get started with tip number 1. Now, there are a lot of different ways that energy consuming products can come into your agency, which means there are several types of purchases where you may need to include energy efficiency requirements. It's important to keep those different acquisition pathways in mind when thinking about contracting. Energy consuming products enter a federal agency through multiple pathways. For some of these purchasing pathways, it is more clear that energy efficiency requirements should apply. For example, lighting, building appliances, or IT equipment are all fairly obviously energy consuming products that require efficiency considerations. But in other areas, it's somewhat less clear that these requirements still apply. For example, with maintenance, repair, and operations service contracts or new construction projects. And within each of these procurement pathways, covered products are typically specified and bought using either a product contract or a service contract. The most common product contracts that typically include covered products are usually volume purchases, which is common for electronics or building appliances, or the purchase of expensive individual equipment such as chillers, boilers, and large imaging equipment. And service contracts typically include covered products in 2 ways. There's either a direct contract, through which your agency is specifying the products to be purchased by a contractor in delivering a certain service, or indirect contracts, through which the vendor or contractor is empowered to choose the products on behalf of the federal government, which is, for example, common in maintenance contracting. Based on our solicitations review project, where we've reviewed over 4,500 federal solicitations, we see that federal agencies sometimes have difficulties including language that will lead to an efficient procurement in indirect contracts in particular. Something that may be overlooked is the fact that even when you're giving power to vendors to procure energy-consuming products on your agency's behalf, you can still include the right contracting language so that the outcome will be an energy-efficient purchase. Tip number 2 is to remember to emphasize energy efficiency in the pre-award phase, because procurement starts before the solicitation even goes out. before you get to the solicitation or the contract itself, you can signal to vendors that you're interested in energy efficient products. Pre-award vehicles such as sources sought and request for information notices are good opportunities to signal your interest in energy efficiency before you get to the solicitation stage. By making it known that you're interested in purchasing energy efficient products, you're more likely to get qualified vendors to respond to your bid. So you can confirm with vendors during market research that they're actually able to deliver efficient products for your project. Include the energy efficiency requirements in all sources sought notices, and describe how you will verify that bid packages actually meet those requirements. Highlight the specific covered products you will be purchasing, or just include the full list of Energy Star and or FEMP designated products. Now on to tip number 3. Once you've done your pre-award work to emphasize energy efficiency, it is important to write a solicitation that highlights energy efficiency requirements as clearly as possible. Simply including the FAR clause for energy efficiency is not always enough. So our third tip is to emphasize energy efficiency in multiple sections of the solicitation, keeping in mind the parts of the solicitation that vendors are likely to look at the most. Based on our solicitation review, these are the 5 parts of your typical solicitation that are most important for including information about energy efficiency. And here is where these sections are found in a typical solicitations table of contents, although this can vary from agency to agency. We're going to quickly go through some concrete action steps for writing each of these sections, highlighting some examples we've seen of successful solicitations from our review work. Let's start at the beginning of the solicitation. The statement of work / description section, mostly referred to as section C, is your first opportunity to inform offerers of the energy efficiency requirements that will apply to your purchase. The key action steps here are to directly state that energy efficiency is important to product performance, to specify what is meant by energy efficient, and to clearly detail specific energy efficiency requirements that will apply to the bid. This Army Corps of Engineers contract does a good job of emphasizing that products must be Energy Star rated, communicating early on to vendors that energy efficiency is an important consideration for this project. However, even if in the scope of work you state that you're interested in energy efficiency, if your technical specifications conflict with that request, the vendor will usually pay more attention to the specifications. Thus, this is arguably the most important place to include the energy efficiency requirements. The more detailed you can be about an energy efficient product, the more likely you are to actually receive it from the vendor. When possible, try to include the product or model number, especially relevant for Energy Star covered products, which list model numbers on their website. If you don't know a specific model number for a product, you can always just list the desired efficiency level for that product category. This Forest Service contract vehicle does a great job of including the specific efficiency level for the product that they want. This is the section of the contract that vendors will be looking at most closely for key product information. Section I is typically the part of the solicitation where you can list all the FAR, Federal Acquisition Requirements clauses, relevant to the purchase. In this section, it is key to ensure that you've included FAR clause 52.223-15, energy efficiency in energy consuming products. It helps to not only check the box or just list the number of the clause, but to also include the full text and to post that full text in multiple sections of the solicitation. Here we see that the agency provided the full text of the FAR clause in addition to listing it in the list of clauses. This helps ensure the vendor doesn't miss it. However, just including the right FAR clause does not ensure you will receive the desired energy efficient product. Section L is another key place to emphasize energy efficiency. This section gives vendors instructions for providing information that can help you review their offer. Use this section to request materials that will allow you to confirm that their offer meets energy efficiency requirements. For example, with Energy Star covered products, require offerors to submit documentation confirming that the specific model they are providing is currently listed on the Energy Star certified product list. For FEMP designated categories, require offerors to submit manufacturer cut sheets confirming that individual products meet the FEMP designated efficiency levels. Additionally, you can provide energy cost information to allow offerors to demonstrate cost savings. This allows identification of offerors with the lowest lifecycle cost and to submit multiple models of energy cost savings. In this contract, the requesting agency has provided clear instructions for offerors to provide documentation that their provided product meets Energy Star or FEMP designated requirements. One quick note here, we found in our solicitation review that sometimes evaluation criteria and other things are embedded in instructions to offerors. So there is some variability in the different parts of the solicitation in which energy efficiency documentation requests are made. The key thing is just getting that request in there. Lastly, Section M is an opportunity to indicate how offers will be evaluated and a great place to emphasize to the vendor the importance of delivering energy efficient products. In this section, it is key to emphasize that technical acceptability requires covered products to have earned the Energy Star label or meet FEMP designated levels. It is also important to evaluate offers based on the lowest lifecycle cost where possible. In this Air Force contract, the contracting officer emphasized that the vendor must provide products that meet the Energy Star standard. So this is a great example of what you can include in your own solicitations. Our fourth and final tip, make sure to emphasize energy efficiency in your indirect service contracts as well. As I mentioned earlier, we've seen in our solicitation reviews that energy efficiency requirements aren't referenced as often when it comes to indirect service contracts. However, even when the vendor is allowed to procure energy consuming products on your agency's behalf, you can still include certain language to better ensure they will be purchasing energy efficient products. And in fact, these types of contracts often have a higher impact potential than other contract vehicles. Service contracts are in place typically for several years and often include the purchase of multiple types of energy consuming product categories. Some of the solicitation sections that we just went through won't be as relevant for indirect service contracts. For example, technical specifications aren't typically included for these. However, this is still a place where your pre-award work can really benefit you. If you explicitly express interest in energy efficiency attributes during your market research and pre-solicitation phase, you can help make it clear to the vendor that they will be expected to prioritize energy efficient products when purchasing on your behalf. In the solicitation itself, you can still do a couple of additional things. Make sure to emphasize energy efficiency in the statement of work, just like with other contract vehicles, and also perhaps provide a baseline model for what you want the product to look like, and to require offers to demonstrate how they will be meeting your requirements throughout the contracting term. Lastly, requiring contract holders to annually report what they've bought, as well as the sustainable energy attributes of those products, is a great way to ensure that they are following your request for energy efficient products, even when they're purchasing on your behalf. So for example, here at LBNL, we contract with Anacapa Micro for certain goods, and we require them to provide information on the energy attributes of their products that they're buying on our behalf.
Thanks, Molly. That concludes the presentation portion of this webinar. We'll now open up for audience questions. If you'll drop your questions in the chat or use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screens. If you prefer, you also can raise your hand and we can unmute you. do have one question that's come in. If speaker, an attendee wants to know if I want more detailed instructions on developing an effective contract, where may I find those? Leanne, do you want to take those on?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ann. So for the attendees, if they click through the Q&A, we have dropped in a link there. But with FEMP, our team members have developed a pretty detailed best practices guides for energy efficiency products procurement. And in this PDF, we will provide your example contracting language for different energy related products and services. So you can copy and paste them directly into your solicitation. And we'll definitely include that link in the follow-up email as well.
All right, thank you. One other question is, what if I don't know what technical specifications or efficiency levels to include for a certain product? Where can I find that? Servan, you want to go ahead and take that one?
Yes, Ian, thanks. I can answer that question. Hopefully you can hear me. So if you don't know what technical specifications or energy efficiency standards to include for your particular product, you can simply type in FEMP products in your search engine. And one of the first results that pops up would be a web page that has a list of all product categories covered by federal purchasing requirements. You can scroll through that web page to identify the product category being purchased through your solicitation. You can click on that link for that product category and it'll take you to a web page that has information on the required energy efficiency level for that particular product category, and you can include that energy efficiency level. In addition to having energy efficiency information, the product pages also have other useful resources like cost saving from buying and using the product, user tips, and other information. I'll post the link to that web page in the chat, but hopefully that answers the question.
Perfect. Thank you, Servan. One of our attendees wants to know, is there a requirement for a SAM report from your contractors? Is that something you perform as a business practice, or is it a prime contract requirement? Chris, would you like to take that one on?
Sure, thanks. So John, thanks for that question. I think what you're asking is whether we at LBL require a sustainability report of all of our contracts. I'm not sure I'm understanding specifically your distinction between the prime contract requirement. I think what you're asking is LBL required to do that in our prime contract when we pass on the subs? If that is your question, technically the answer is no. Our prime contract requires LBL to require our subcontractors to provide us with efficient products, as Molly has presented, but it doesn't require reporting per se. Instead, we add that reporting requirement as a way of verifying that our contractors are providing us with the efficient products that we're seeking. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks, Chris. And John, if you have a follow-up, please go ahead and post it in Q&A and we'll come right back around to it. We have another question from Charles Eppright, who asks, is there any federal analysis of commercial product categories that points out their level of compliance with energy saving standards? If so, would this show that a, quote, commercial product or item, unquote, will enhance energy saving procurement by the government? And Servan, would you like to take a whack at that one?
Yes, Ian, I can answer that question. So as part of our work at LBNL, we do solicitation review work. So we review solicitations posted on FedBizOps, earlierly FedBizOps, now it's data.fem.gov. We go through solicitations and go through contracts to see if these contracts are purchasing energy consuming products. And if they purchase energy consuming products, do they include the FAR clause that Molly mentioned earlier, FAR 52.223-15. And we also look for other criteria like does this solicitation include energy efficiency in different parts of the solicitation, like statement of work, evaluation factors, or other parts of the solicitation. So we do that work, and maybe we can provide a future webinar on what are the results from our solicitation review work. And regarding to the second part of the question, does this show which commercial product category has the highest energy savings? So we have another project that looks at the cost savings at federal agencies from buying and using energy efficient products. And we use the data from our solicitation review work and also from our cost savings work to find out, okay, what's the current level of compliance and what will be the savings if the compliance is 100%, and what are the product categories that can provide the significant amount of the savings potential. And we find that generally product categories like electronics and IT equipment and HVAC products have a significant amount of savings potential still to be reached. So just to give you an example, we estimate that federal agencies saved somewhere around $100 million by buying and purchasing energy efficient products last year. And if all federal agencies bought the energy efficient products as required by FEMP requirements, the savings would be $300 million. So this gap of $200 million in savings could be achieved by buying more energy efficient electronics and IT equipment, HVAC equipment, and so on and so forth. And maybe we can provide the results of that analysis in another webinar as well. Hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Ravan. And now I'll invite Chris to jump in if he has anything further to add.
I think Sravan covered it. Thanks, Sravan. Charles, if you have additional questions about that, it's a pretty complex area, and we'd be happy to follow up offline with you. So Ian, if I may, I'll turn to the next question from Patricia Donahue, who asks, a decade ago, Energy Star provided a list of vendors that meet the requirement. Now there seems to be specifications, such as a 95% efficient boiler. Can you explain the change from a list to specification? So, Patricia, you are correct that Energy Star provides lists of products that meet the Energy Star requirement. That is how an Energy Star product receives the label. So every product that has achieved the technical specification that Energy Star has set will receive the label on the product. And that labeled product is also maintained on a, quote, qualified product list, unquote, that Energy Star maintains on their website. That makes things relatively straightforward. Buy the labeled product. Here's the wrinkle. We also include in federal purchasing requirements products that are not covered by the Energy Star program and are instead covered by the Federal Energy Management Program. In that case, the Federal Energy Management Program does not offer a label. It instead identifies the technical specification that we're asking agencies to request and vendors to provide. So for those products designated by FEMP, there is that technical requirement. For those products designated by Energy Star, look for the label and you're done. I hope that answers the question.
Thanks, Chris. We also have one more question. Whether it's a question about acquisition planning documents. And the question is, are you using a project management plan to serve as your acquisition plan document? Chris, do you want to take that one as well?
Yeah, sorry. So let me reread the question, Katrina. So you're asking, did we discuss the actual acquisition planning document? Are we recommending using a project management plan to serve as your acquisition planning document? We didn't cover that explicitly in the presentation that Molly just made. You are correct that what we presented is one component of a broader acquisition process that includes things like acquisition planning, budget planning, and then all of the pre-solicitation things that we mentioned, like sources sought notices, requests for information, market research, etc. It's definitely the case that we would recommend incorporating planning for energy efficient products in your acquisition planning document, and particularly in your budgeting phase. This may be an important place to mention that by federal regulation, agencies can assume that energy efficient products, that is products that meet these requirements that we've discussed, are life cycle cost effective. And so budgeting for products that meet these requirements will guarantee that the total cost of ownership to the federal government is optimized. So yes, I certainly encourage people to use the acquisition planning document and the project management plan. We didn't cover that here. Thank you for raising that visibility. I hope that answered your question.
Okay, well, thanks for those questions, folks. If you have any further questions related to energy efficient product procurement, do reach out. Leon, the next slide, please. Do reach out to either Jeff Murrow, who manages this program at DOE, or to Chris, who was just speaking. He leads our he's a research scientist who leads our team here at Berkeley Lab and is a subject matter expert. And we're also invite any of you, if you know of any particularly effective examples of efficient product procurement, or individuals who have, exemplify those kinds of processes, we'd love to hear from you. We'll love to hear about them. So please do get in touch and share those stories. Lastly, don't forget to join us for part 3 of our Contracting for Efficiency webinar series on July 29th. That's also at 1 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be highlighting real-world examples and practices of procurement professionals with a track record of success in contracting for efficiency. And with that, I think we'll bring the webinar to a close with our thanks for your attendance.